So, after coming hot and heavy off of a great month for AEW in July with their Road Rager, Fyter Fest, and Fight for the Fallen tour, we have now come into August, which is basically the lead-in period into what could be the hottest month for AEW, like, in their inception, and that is the start from August 20th into September 20th, well, 22nd, so basically from the first dance to the Arthur Ashe Stadium show. This is really the bridge to that show, and this is AEW Homecoming 2021 review. So, last week we did an AEW Dynamite review, and it did exceptionally well, way better than I expected. It doubled the amount of likes that I anticipated we would get and asked for, so I figured it was warranted we would do another week of Dynamite reviews. And if you guys keep the likes up and the engagement up, we'll keep on doing these reviews. So, once again, guys, I'm Tyler Coon Williams, also known as Suplex on TikTok, Suplex with 2 X's on Twitch.tv, and this is your AEW Dynamite review. Let's talk about Homecoming. So, to start things off with the show, let me just say, overall, the show was decent. Like, I think there's never going to be, like, this entire run where AEW Dynamite has great matches for, like, an entire year. I mean, great shows for an entire year. There's always going to be a period in time for any wrestling show, for any show, period, where there's, like, a buffer episode, where there's, a, you know, a missable episode. This is one of those episodes where I'm like, if you missed it, I don't really think there's anything worth going back to really watch. Even the main event, which really was the highlight of the episode, I don't know if that's even worth going back to watch, but we'll talk about it once we get to it. Let's start off with the opening match of the show, and that was Chris Jericho in his third labor of Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. So this This was an okay match that I felt like could have been on the cusp of being decent or good if it wasn't really plagued by Jericho's badly timed selling. So Juventud Guerrera, I'll give him a lot of credit. The guy is somewhere, I believe, in late 40s, and he's out here doing dives, he's doing hurricanranas, and you know, Chris Jericho, he's 50, so they're both old, on the older side. I'm not expecting them to be high speed the way they were 20 years ago. I was not expecting that. I was expecting a slower paced match, but the thing was, Juventud was trying to wrestle a faster version of a slow-paced match, and Chris Jericho, I felt like, was just really not, I don't want to say he wasn't cooperating, but there would be times where Juventud would hit a Rana, and like Jericho would just kind of like fall into it. And we've seen this before with Chris Jericho, where he just doesn't sell very well, and it's because he's older, and you know, he's kind of broken down, and we know, we sympathize, we understand, but in this match, when you have somebody who's like Juventud, who's an older luchador trying to do these moves, and you're not really smoothly going into these moves, it doesn't look very good. So there was a lot of spots where they were doing moves, and it did not look very good, much at all. And then there were times where Chris Jericho would really kind of slowly, like, we all know how wrestling is. Like, it takes two to cooperate and to make a move look good. Well, there would be times where Chris Jericho, Juventud would kind of like go for a, let's say, a top rope body splash, right? And usually you get into a position of a body splash, it seems pretty seamless. Like, it seems like you've walked into the body splash. Like, we know you walked into the move, but it doesn't look like you walked into the move. Well, when Chris Jericho would get set up for it, it seemed like he was just walking into position, and then Juventud would kind of have to position himself right to do the dive. So there would be almost like this 2-3 second waiting period where you're almost waiting for the move to get hit, and it just kind of, it looks fake. Like, I know wrestling is fake, but there are times where wrestling really looks fake, and this was not a good showing. So outside of that, like I said, I thought the match was okay at best. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it was okay. Chris Jericho had to win with a top rope move. He did hit 2 top rope moves prior to the finish. He had a top rope body splash, and then after that, he had a top rope hurricanrana, which is a staple of babyface Jericho now. And he ended the match out with a regular Judas effect, you know, the spinning elbow, which at first he was going to go for the pin, but then he realized, wait, I can't finish the match like that. So he goes to the top rope, And he does a top rope Judas effect, which is basically just the leaping spinning elbow, which looked pretty sick. He got the pin off of that. You call that a super Judas effect or whatever the case may be. He hits that, he gets the pin, and Chris Jericho wins the match. He's moving on to the fourth labor Jericho, which Wardlow attacks him after the match, and he is the fourth labor for Chris Jericho, and MJF will be ringside for the match. So my question is, now that Wardlow's the fourth labor, is MJF the fifth labor, or is there like one more guy before he gets to MJF? I'm assuming someone else is the fifth labor, and then he challenges MJF at All Out, because All Out is in 4 weeks, so they need another opponent after next week. But who would that be? Because it's like the first person was Shawn Spears, the second person was Nick Gage, who arguably I think everyone would agree should have been the last labor, and then the third person's Juventud. Now the fourth person's Wardlow. I feel like Wardlow probably should have been the last labor. It's like, unless you're doing like a 2-on-1 with Chris Jericho versus FTR, and you can't do that because Cash Wheeler's out with injury right now, it seems like, from what we heard later on in the show. You already did Shawn Spears, and Wardlow's the biggest guy of the Pinnacle, so it's like, who else are you putting in there? I think maybe you do Paul White, since that's Chris Jericho's former tag team partner, the Big Show, Jericho. I don't know who else would make sense to be the fifth labor if Wardlow's the fourth. That's what I'm thinking. I want you guys to comment down below, who would you guys pick as Chris Jericho's fifth labor? I'm curious as to what ideas you guys have. But that was the match. I would give it a 5 out of 10. It really was nothing special. Then we get into some segments here. The first of which being a backstage segment with Pac and Andrade and Chavo. What was going to be Pac, but Pac was, on a delay. So last week, we had Pac in a backstage segment with Chavo and Andrade, and the Lucha Bros are late. This time it's reversed, where we had the Lucha Bros backstage, and Pac is late. But obviously, he has issues getting to the arena, presumably because, Chavo and Andrade delayed that. But it just seemed like, and it was basically the same thing as last week, where it's like, you come work for me. And then they're like, no. And then that's the end of the segment. It's like, I feel like this has been the same segment over the last 3 weeks. It's like, can we get a match? Like, I understand you don't want to rush into things. You could drag this out a little. Like, I don't know how much longer they could drag out this same segment happening, but you could drag it out a little bit longer before you get to a singles match between, I don't know, Andrade and Phoenix or Andrade and Pac, which everybody's waiting for. It doesn't matter what iteration you do versus Andrade, it's going to hit hard. It's going to be great. I don't care what iteration you do at All Out. I don't care what iteration you do on Dynamite. But can y'all change up the formatting of how we're getting to this point? Because I feel like we have seen the same promo for the last 3 weeks. It's the same premise. It leads to the same outcome where they say no, and then the next week it's the same thing. It's like, let's change it up a bit. Let's get a different setting. Let's get a different outcome. Let's do a tag match, a 3-on-3. I don't know, but let's not do this again next week. Or if you get to next week, have Pac and Lucha Bros finally link up and then maybe attack Andrade. Just change it up. That's all I ask. Change it up. It's not angry. I'm not mad or anything, but I just realizing that it feels like it's redundant now. And it's like, redundancy is not a good thing. Change it up a little bit. So after that segment, we have, if I look to the right, I have notes. So please don't mind me if I look away at times. After that, we had the Dark Order. They were backstage talking about their losses, and Heyman Page comes into frame. And Heyman Page is down in the dumps, and I call him the Drake of wrestling because Heyman Page is the Drake of wrestling. And when I say the Drake, I'm talking about the singer and artist Drake, where Drake in his song, like, Drake is an amazing artist. He's a good singer, and on top of that, he has some of the best hit songs of the last 10 years. No one ever doubt Drake and his abilities. But when you listen to Drake's songs, it's always so kind of like, some of them are sad and sappy, and other ones are like, oh, she cheated on me. And it's always about the girl did him wrong in some way. And you almost kind of have to sympathize with Drake. So, like, when I think of Heyman Page, I think of Drake because it's like I always feel like I'm sympathizing for Hangman, and he's never actually winning anything. So he comes in, he's down in the dumps, blaming himself for the loss of the team, and I'm not making it seem like it's a bad thing because we've all been there. I think all men can empathize with Hangman because, you know, we're men. We're supposed to be rough and tough and always going all the time. So when you see another guy who's, you know, in his feelings, immediately you're kind of like, oh, suck it up. But at the same time, you're like, oh, well, you know, I mean, like, I see where you're coming from, because it's like, I don't get the opportunity to feel that way. You do. I get it. So Hangman, he comes to frame. He's down in the dumps, blaming himself for the loss of the team. And they're like, no, Hangman, we all lost. And Hangman basically breaks up with them. He's like, guys, listen, it's not you, it's me. You know, I need to focus on this. I can't have you guys with me. It's over. He basically breaks up with the Dark Order, and they all go to chase him down. Even though it's like, no, guys, let's let him have his space. They basically made this like a breakup, and that was kind of funny. But Hangman's now done with the Dark Order, it seems like. And I was curious as to why they're breaking up right now. And I felt like maybe this is leading to like him possibly joining the Elites for a little bit and kind of being their underling. That's what I thought initially when I saw this. But then they had a later segment in the show, which I'll talk about when we get to it. But then we got to the next match, which was a team of 2.0 and Danny Garcia versus Jon Moxley, Darby Allin, and Eddie Kingston. First things first, I love the pairing of Jon Moxley, Darby Allin, and Eddie Kingston. First of all, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, they are repeatedly, every single time they're on AEW television, they are the best part about AEW, whether it be promos, segments, matches. They're always the best highlight of the show. So it's always a pleasure seeing those guys together. But you pair them up with Darby Allin, who almost seems like he's on the cusp of being a main eventer in AEW. He gets some of the biggest cheers from the crowd. He's in high profile matches every single week. Like, he's, if you were to put Darby Allin in the main event of Dynamite and have him feud with Kenny Omega, I wouldn't doubt it, and I feel like none of you should doubt it either, because of how they position this guy. Even if he's small, even if he's not technically sound or buff or, you know, conforming to what the standards of a pro wrestler are, I think Darby Allin is definitely up there with Jon Moxley and Kingston in being important to the company. So this team was really awesome to see. You had Sting accompanying Darby, which I feel like at this point, I'm used to seeing Sting accompany Darby, because at first I'm like, Darby doesn't need Sting, but he's been with him for so long. I feel like now it's going to be awkward if he's not there. So I guess if they were trying to make Sting a part of Darby, mission accomplished. But we got to the match. It was fun. I enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoyed the opening match. It wasn't anything too crazy. We didn't see like anything that was like worthy of like a highlight, or this is something I'll remember for the next like few weeks. Like, you'll forget about this match by the time the next Dynamite happens, but it was enjoyable. I liked it. 2.0, the former Everrise of NXT. I think the guy's name is Matt Lee. He is very entertaining. He's always like in your face, like, Moxley, Darby, this is gonna happen. Like, I feel like his intensity, he reminds me of a theater kid. Like, he reminds me like he's a guy who probably is very into his role when he was doing it in high school, and like he's adapted that into his form now, and it's just, he comes across a little bit like a try-hard, but it's the try-hard where it's like, I like it because you're over the top and no one else is over the top. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to describe, but it's like no one else emanates the same energy he has, so I like him. And in this match, he has like mid-match dialogue. He's talking trash to Eddie Kingston. He's like, oh my God, are you the real Sting? Are you the real Sting? And then Darby Allin just like crashes into him. Like, he was the highlight of that entire match. Like, I was talking about it on the podcast. I'm kind of hoping the AEW gets to the point where they don't sign any more people, because they have a lot of people already. But if they were to sign 2.0, I wouldn't be mad at it at all, because this pairing of Matt Lee, Danny Garcia, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't know the other guy's name. I apologize. I have to look his name up. I like the trio. I think if we see them on Dark or Dark Elevation, I wouldn't be opposed to watching one of their matches. I don't think you need to sign the entire trio. I don't think that's necessary. But that Matt Lee guy, I keep him in mind. I keep him in mind. There was another guy we saw on Dynamite a few weeks ago who was not signed, who reappeared. So maybe they're kind of on this reappearing basis, but not signed yet. That's what I might do. We did see Moxley hit a paradigm shift onto Danny Garcia, tagged in Darby Allin. He had the coffin drop. He got the pin. So Mox, Darby, and Kingston won the match. After the match, we saw Eddie Kingston, John Moxley, and Sting did the pose and Too Sweet. It was the first time we got to see John Moxley actually crack a smile. You know, not too often is Moxley out there smiling, look like he's having fun. I mean, Moxley always look like he's having fun, but it's his own version of having fun, where he's always like always, oh my God, almost like I'm having a seizure or some shit. But, you know, he's always like looking kind of like mad at the world, but he looks like he's having fun while he's mad at the world. But he's actually like smiling, like he's having a good time. So with Sting and Moxley, and that Darby's out to the corner like eyeing down Danny Garcia. So that was cool. I enjoyed that a lot. We got this like 1 minute abbreviation, which we've seen on Dynamite before. It's nothing new. This like 1 minute abbreviation of a feud going on right now with Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and it's basically like a reminder of what happened last week and like what they plan to do in the weeks to come. I like this, and I think they should incorporate this into Rampage, because Rampage is a 1 hour show. And you need to break the whole, you don't want to do match, end the show. Like, I don't think it should be just match and that's it on Rampage. I think something like this, where you don't do a 5 minute long promo, but you do a 1 minute, 2 minute abbreviation of a feud that's happening on Dynamite, or a feud that might be continuing on Rampage. You do that, and then you segue into a backstage segment, and then you do a match. Because at most, Rampage should be having 3 to 4 matches every week. I don't think they have the time to do 5 matches. So like 3 to 4 matches a week, and then you could do maybe 2, possibly if you have time, 3 promos a week, and that's it. That's what you do your show. And I think this is a good way to do that. It was a Brian Cage, Ricky Starks promo. They were on the show, but this is the capacity that they were featured in the show. After that, we had Elite Backstage Segment. They were gloating about their win last week, playing basketball. This confirmed that we're getting the Dark Order versus the Good Brothers next week on Dynamite for the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championships, which kind of puzzled me, because if I recall last week, we had a 5-on-5, the Elite versus the Dark Order, Heyman Page, where if the Elite win, they don't get championship matches. And yes, you're going to say, oh, but that was for the AEW Tag Team Championships. I get that it was not for both championships, but I feel like to have a match where if the Dark Order loses, they don't get tag team championship matches, and then give them tag team championship matches 2 weeks later, kind of counteracts what the point of the 5-on-5 actually was. Like, I get Heyman Page is getting a world championship match, but the Dark Order somehow finds a way to get tag team championship matches that aren't the AEW tag team championships on AEW television. Like, that it just seems very counterproductive of what the point of the 5-on-5 was, which is what I was afraid might happen. But with Heyman Page, and it's like Heyman Page is not getting the world championship match. I get that, but I just feel like if y'all were gonna do that, wait a bit. Don't do it 2 weeks after doing that stipulation and then give them championship matches anyway, because it's like, at that point, why not give Heyman Page a TNT championship match, right? It's not for the world championship. Give him a TNT championship match against Miro. You know what I mean? It's like, the logic is kind of like, they found a plot hole. They found a little, what's the word? Rabbit hole? They found like a rabbit hole to dig into. Be like, well, we can't give you this, but we'll give you this instead. Like, all right, well, where's Hangman's at? You know, like, I wouldn't have done that consolation prize. That's me personally. But then we hop into the third match of the show, Christian Cage versus The Blade. I didn't really care for the match going into it. I didn't really care for the match when it happened either. I mean, it was an all-right match. Christian Cage, he attacked The Blade before the match, and then I got into the in-ring stuff. The bunny got included a little bit, trying to block Christian from doing moves, and that was really the match. Christian won with the kill switch, and yeah. We didn't got into a swing of promos and segments, so just the last segments in here, just let you know. Not a bad thing, just letting you know. We had FTR and Santana Ortiz. They had a backstage promo. This was another abbreviated promo that we saw with Brian Cage, Ricky Starks earlier. They really showed the Cash was gassed on his arm. what's his name? Dax was making it seem like he was going to bleed out. He could have died last week. I really like Dax Harwood on promos. He has this intensity and the delivery that not many other people have. And I feel like if they wanted to do a singles run with Dax, I wouldn't be mad at that until Cash comes back. And it seems like that's where they may be heading. Not a singles run, but maybe a singles match between, like, I don't know, Dax and Santana to build time before the next tag team match. Because we don't know when Cash is returning. We do understand he's injured. Hopefully he's back before All Out, in time for All Out. If not, they could do the match at Arthur Ashe Stadium in September 22nd. But that's what they're leading into. We then had Britt Baker come out to the ring for an interview with Tony Schiavone. Before she even get a word out, we had Red Velvet come out to the ring, and she's putting it out on blast that she wants the AEW Women's World Championship. And I'm like, well, what did you really do to win or get a shot at that? But then I remember there's Dark and Dark Elevation, which I just don't watch. I feel like I have to start watching Dark and Dark Elevation because stuff happens, not important stuff, but stuff happens that really kind of leads into what should happen on Dynamite. Like Red Velvet is somehow a number one contender, yet I don't know how. And it's like, oh, well, she won all these matches on Dark. And it's like, cool, but I don't watch Dark, so I wouldn't have known that. So it's like, I feel like sometimes that's kind of the downfall of Dark, is that people like me, who, if you would ask me, I'm an AEW fan, I'm not going to stray away from it. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to. Like, no, I'm an AEW fan. I love AEW. But I don't feel like I have the time to watch Dark and Dark Elevation every single week. Now, Dark and Dark Elevation are shorter than they were in previous months, so that might help things a little bit, but I don't watch either show. So stuff like this just seems a bit confusing, because it's like, last time I saw you, I feel like I saw you losing to Jade Cargill. So, but she comes out, she challenges Britt Baker. Britt Baker puts her ass in check and like, hey, I beat you in 3 minutes last time you were in the ring. Like, I thought she was going to say skedaddle, but she accepts the challenge. And it makes sense, because it's like, if I beat you in 3 minutes, I could beat you 3 minutes again. She's like, okay, so I accept your challenge. And Velvet's like, oh, well, I have a 22-4 record, and I didn't have to cheat to win my matches. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the enhancement talent I was before. I'm going to beat your ass, all this kind of stuff. And that was really the gist of it. And Britt Baker says, all right, well, I got you. I'll talk to Tony Khan, and we'll get that match official for AEW Rampage in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we got that signed on later in the show. So that's official for the first Rampage starting next Friday. It will be Britt Baker versus Red Velvet. And that's also something I want to do a quick little announcement for. I will do a video on it individually, but I will be live for that very first Rampage next week. So I'm excited for that. That's official. After that, Reba went to swing at Red Velvet with the crutch, but she missed. And Britt Baker took her out, and then she posed with the championship, and that was the segment. Then after that, we had Andrade and Chavo backstage again. I'm like, they got 2 segments? All right. So they're backstage, and they're like, okay, we couldn't get the Lucha Bros, but we got someone else. And then they bring in Fuego del Sol, who was a staple on AEW Dark, and mostly because he's not signed, and that's his gimmick, is that, you know, he's not signed AEW, please sign Fuego del Sol. So when he comes to the shot, he gets a pretty sizable pop from the crowd, which is like, that's pretty cool that he got popped from the crowd. And they're like, all right, shine his shoes. And he's like, that wasn't what you guys agreed upon with me. And then Andrade attacks him, and that was the segment. Andrade's like, Lucha Bros, if you don't join me, you'll never be champion. Like, can we get a match? Please, can we get a match or a tag team match or something? Just to break the monotony up of what's going on between this feud. I feel like it's all talk and nothing else. Then we got Heyman Page out to the ring for a promo. Before he even gets a chance to speak, the Elite cuts them off. So you have, you know, the Bucks, Kenny, and the Good Brothers. They come out all dressed as Kenny Omega. I know people want to cancel Max Caster. They want to cancel Ronda Rousey. Can we cancel Kenny Omega for those tacky teenage 2010 jean shorts he was wearing? He was wearing tie-dye, knee-cut, like pink and purple jeans shorts. Like, that's something a 2010 that's something I would have worn in high school. And I started high school in 2011. I'm like, I get the Elite and their gimmick is to look weird and be out. but I want to punch them in the face sometimes every time I see them dressed up. So they come out and they're like, hey man, you know, I don't know what you've been out here doing, bro. Like, you lost. Like, bye, skedaddle. And hey man, he's like, I want to say something to the Bucks. And Kenny steps in. He's like, oh, wait a minute, bro. What you a loser. Bye. And Kenny basically says, oh, I know you probably want to join the Dark Order. I mean, not join the Dark Order. Join the Elite. But we don't have room for losers. And that was basically the promo. They attack the Hangman Page after the fact. And the Dark Order comes out. And right before they get to the ring, you have Stu Gracie Uno step in. And they kind of stop the rest of them. Like, no, Heyman doesn't want us. He don't want us. Let him get his... And it's funny because it's like, Heyman's getting his ass beat, right? He's getting beat up. They see he's getting beat up. And when they come to help, Stu Gracie and Evil Uno step in like, no, he doesn't want our help. And I'm like, but he's getting beat the fuck up. Like help him. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different story if he's out there and they're like, you know, talking shit, whatever. Yeah, don't help him because he don't want your help. But my man's getting beat up. Like, what do you mean don't help him out? Like, I'm sorry, but if that's my bro and my bro, like, if me and my bro going through something right now and he don't want my help, and he getting beat up, I ain't gonna not jump in because, like, oh, he don't want my help. Like, I'm not gonna jump in. He just gonna have to be mad after the fact. And then if he want my help after the fact, then I'm gonna jump in next time. You know what I mean? But I felt like for them to be like, oh, no, don't. And then kind of like turn around and hear him getting beat up. I thought that was kind of shitty. I understand what they were going for. That was kind of shitty for that to happen. Frank Kazarian comes out, which I find this really funny now. Like, it's almost a comedy act that Frank Kazarian, every time the Elite has any involvement in anything, he's there to attack them. Like, that is literally his only job on AEW, is just to get involved in Elite matches. It's almost annoying now that he comes out because, like, the crowd almost doesn't care because he does it every time, and it leads to like, he's been doing this for months and it leads to nothing. It's just consistently him. He comes out and he fends off somebody from helping the Elite, or he attacks the Elite and he gets beat down, and then that's it. That's literally every week. It's almost like the Road Runner from, like, the Looney Tunes, where he has to chase down the Woody Woodpecker and he never gets them. That's literally Frank Kazarian. He's fucking the Woody Woodpecker. Well, he's not Woody Woodpecker. He's the Coyote. He's Wile E. Coyote. That's him. Wile E. Coyote Frank Kazarian. That's why I'm going to start calling him, because he chases them down and he never gets them. And then he chases them down and he never gets them. And then he chases them down and it looks like he might, and then he doesn't get them. Or fucking Tom and Jerry. I don't know. You put whatever label you want on him, but it never leads it to anything, and I feel like it's a waste of time. At least give him a feud with, I don't know, fucking, I guess you can't really do the Good Brothers or the Young Bucks. I don't know what the purpose is of this. You know what I mean? Like, just give him something else to do. Just stop attacking the Elite if it's not going anywhere. It's just kind of dumb. It's not like angering me, but it's just annoying because it's like, bro, what's the purpose? You know what I mean? Especially if no one's going to help you. So after that, we have Dan Lambert. He's back. So he was the guy on Road Rager that basically cut a Jim Cornette promo, tearing into the crowd like, back in my day, we had Billy the Gun and da 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 and da 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 da, and these young bucks these days, they don't know anything about wrestling and two and da da da. Like, that was the guy's promo. And basically, in a 15-second promo, he said that he's coming back next week with backup. So we're going to get another Jim Cornette promo next week on Dynamite. I don't know who asked for this, but get ready for it. So then we segue into the fourth match on the show, Lee Johnson versus Miro for the TNT Championship. This was the best match on the show. Not really the much to go off of, though, because it wasn't really a great match. It was just good at best. Like, I can't call it a squash match because Lee Johnson actually got offense in, though the offense wasn't anything like incredible or anything noteworthy. He got offense in, but Miro took control and he ended up winning with the game over. That's really all I could say about this match. It was that. It was a Miro TNT Championship defense. I hope he gets a feud soon, because Miro's in this pit where it's like he's existing as the TNT champion. Like it's cool that he's a champion in AEW, and that's all fans wanted for him. But he seems like he's just existing. Like he's in this Christian Cage spot where he's on the roster and he has matches, but that's kind of it. So I'm hoping that going into All Out, they give him somebody to have promos with an exchange with. Like he had something going with Lance Archer going into Double or Nothing. Like give him something going into All Out too. That's what I hope for, at least. So speaking of Christian Cage, he had a promo segment, but that's after this. They announced the official commentary team for AEW Rampage next week. We have Taz, Excalibur, Chris Jericho, and Mark Henry. Now listen, I'm happy that Jim Ross is not involved in Rampage because Jim Ross annoys me on AEW Dynamite with his botches. He wasn't bad this week, but most weeks he be messing up. So no Jim Ross, I'm fine with that. The 4-man booth though, I don't know about a 4-man booth. I think that's a bit excessive. I think you could easily cut out Excalibur. Like Excalibur is good. He's arguably the best commentator on the booth. Taz is a really great commentator in my opinion. Chris Jericho, he's a great commentator. Mark Henry, I don't know how Mark Henry is on commentary. This will be his like opening week as a commentator. I felt like if you could cut somebody, I would just keep Excalibur on Dynamite with Jim Ross and Schiavone and just have it be Taz, Jericho, Mark Henry. But hey, we'll see how 4-man does, and we'll see how that goes. If it's good, keep them on. If not, cut one of them. But we had a non-AEW related, but we had a commercial break for Pat Ribbon, PBR. And the commercial break was Matt Cardona, Chelsea Green, Hornswoggle, Mark Sterling, and Kurt Hawkins. I thought that was really funny. Christian then had a backstage segment, and he announced that he is the new number 1 contender for the AEW World Championship. And I said, well, what did you do? You beat the Blade? I said, he beat the Blade? You see how nobody really cared that he beat the Blade? Like, who have you beaten of note to get you this championship match? I feel like this is another thing where it's like, who did you beat? Did you win matches on Dark? Is that what happened here? Because it's like, I'm not understanding how you went to number 1 this quickly. And you didn't beat. They need to really start getting better at making the rankings have more of a structure to it. Like, is it based off of your wins and wins alone? Obviously not, because if that were the case, there would be a lot of people in number 1 spot who shouldn't be there because they have more wins. So is it based off of who you beat? And it can't be that because the Blade isn't a main eventer. The Blade isn't someone that's really important. Is it that you beat Matt Hardy a few weeks ago? I guess. But like, you beat Matt Hardy, you beat Chris, you beat the Blade, and that's it. I don't see how you got number 1. Personally. But he's number 1. He's the new number 1 contender, so we can all assume that he's facing Kenny Omega at All Out, which, like I said on the podcast, I don't really care for that match, but I guess it's something for Kenny to do until we get to Arthur Ashe Stadium. So that should be really good, but I don't really care for it. He started singing the Friends theme song. He referenced the Best Friends. He said that he will be going back to what was taken away from him 7 years ago when he had to retire. So Christian's next in line. We then got Layla Hirsch versus the Bunny in an AEW Women's Eliminator match. The winner will face Camille Brickhouse. Don't know when, but they'll face Camille for the NWA Women's Championship. The entire Hart family office, operation, whatever they're called, they came out, aside from Matt Hardy, with the Bunny. The Best Friends with Wheeler Yuta came out with Layla Hirsch. Then outside the ring was Nyla Rose as well. There was too much going on outside the ring. Now, they didn't get involved in the match, but it was very distracting to have like 12 people ringside for this match. Like that was very unnecessary. Please don't have that many people ringside again. I don't see the need for that unless it's a lumberjack match, and it was not. Like I said, they weren't the focus, but in bits and pieces of the match, you had, Wheeler Yuta and Shy. You had this guy and Shy. You had Chris Statlander and Nyla Rose staring down each other, and the camera's catching it. It's like that was unnecessary. You didn't hear all this happening. This match was okay. Layla Hirsch won with her arm bar and tapped out the Bunny. Then Camille Brickhouse got into the ring, and she stared down Layla. Camille is so tall with the heels on, and Layla's so short. She towered over Layla. That was quite the sight to see. But then, that led into a backstage segment with Jade Cargill, who we haven't seen on Dynamite in like a month or so. So thank God she's actually alive and well. She's back, but on Dark Elevation next week, not on Dynamite. We then got confirmation for Dynamite next week. Chris Jericho versus Wardlow, Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander, and the Good Brothers versus Evil Uno and Stu Grayson for the Impact World Tag Team Championships, as well as Rampage next Friday, the debut episode of Rampage, not the final dance. Britt Baker versus Red Velvet for the AEW Women's World Championship. Then we got to the main event, Cody Rhodes versus Malakai Black. A match been teased and built up for the last month. Dope entrance for Malakai Black. I prefer his Aleister Black entrance more than this, but it was cool. He had a blackout entrance where it appeared. He had the lights, and then he would appear in the ring with the lights and the pose. He had this Wendigo skull on, which was a cool visual, and it was a nice attire piece. Cody came out as Homelander Rhodes. I was hoping and praying he would do the right thing, and he did. The match went 4 minutes. Malakai Black targeted Cody's leg. At one point, Cody took a table spot. He went from the top rope through the commentator's table. After that, he got into the ring. Black masses hit on him, and he got pinned. 1 foot draped over his chest, and Malakai Black beat him. Squash match, more or less. It was very similar to the Brody Lee match, except Brody Lee got way more offensive and looked way more dominant. In terms of squash match standards, this was weak. In terms of Malakai Black looking great, they did a great job making Malakai Black look like a star in one night, beating Cody Rhodes. I almost can assume that Cody Rhodes will beat Malakai Black in their second match. After the match, Malakai Black walks to the back, and Cody Rhodes is on the mat. They hand him a crutch, and I'm like, bro, he didn't get his leg targeted that badly for him to get a crutch, but whatever. He gets handed a crutch. And Tony Schiavone's like, yeah, are you okay, kid? Like, you know what I mean? Like, speak for the crowd. Cody Rhodes, because they fought. This promo lasted as long, if not longer, than the actual match did. And he's like, oh, you know, the crowd and the people. And I'm like, I understand. He's trying to get sympathy and talking about how great it was to be there, but I didn't care. I'm like,
oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
The world's smallest violin for Cody Rhodes. Oh, boo-hoo. He lost the match. Oh, we're here Daly's place. It's a staple place. I'm like, Cody, keep it moving, bro. Keep it moving. It's like Malakai Black just won. This is his moment. And then Cody hops on and makes it about him. That's how I perceived it. He made this about him. And then after that fact, after the promo, he takes off his boot like he's retiring. I'm like, bro, nobody buys that you're retiring. But he takes off the boot. He leaves it in the ring. Malakai Black grabs the crutch. It hits Cody in the back. And Jim Ross is like, did Malakai Black just retire Cody Rhodes? And do y'all honestly believe that Cody Rhodes is done forever off this 1 4-minute match with Malakai Black? I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. It was literally the same blueprint as last year's match with Brody Lee. The same blueprint. Except Malakai Black didn't look as dominant as Brody Lee did. Like I said, it was a weak squash match, but a great showing for Malakai Black. I didn't have an issue with the match itself. I just felt like the end promo was not needed or necessary. But hey, it's building up to the next match, and that was the end of Dynamite. Once again, this show, it was a skippable show. I would give this show overall a 6 out of 10. The only match on here that was really worth your time, I would say, was probably the main events for the Impact, and that's a 5-minute match. So really the longer match worth your time, I would say, probably was the 2.0 Danny Garcia versus Moxley, Kingston, and Darby match, because that was a fun match. And though Lee versus Miro was a better match, I thought that match was more enjoyable. So that was the match of the night for me, was the 6-man tag team match, and that was Dynamite. We're getting into next week's Dynamite, which is going to be a a semi-important show leading into the first Rampage, which is going to be next Friday, which I will be live for on this channel. So that was your view of AEW Homecoming. What did you guys think? Comment down below. Let your boy know. I love you as always. Check me out on my socials, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.